Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and right there, fresh from St. Louis,
that's right,
is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello.
Hi, Nikki.
Hello, everyone.
Give me the brief. I know you learned a lot, but you're back from the conference. Tell the good people what you were doing, and give us your top 2 highlights of the event. Will you do that?
My notes are still in my bag, but just on top of my head, I will give you that. But I will do a show, and I think next week where I will actually recap, the highlights. One of the themes that I noticed for this conference that was different, or not different, but just more of a highlight, was acceptance, which I thought was really awesome since we are coming off of a show with James Ochoa about acceptance. And so there was a lot of, this isn't about fixing you. This is about accepting who you are, and this is just how you think, and there's not anything wrong with that just because it may be different from the person sitting next to you. And so there was a lot about that, which I thought was really great. I met some great people, some experts that I'm hoping to get onto our show, and it was a lot of information in a 3-day period of time, so I'm still kind of processing it all and reeling it in. But it was great. It's all ADHD 24/7. One thing I would say too, if you, I watched the last keynote, which was Jessica McCabe from How to ADD from YouTube.
Sure.
Oh,
we love her.
She had such a great keynote and a great story. So if you haven't checked out her TED Talk, I highly suggest doing it because she got the room standing, clapping, crying, laughing. I mean, it was really, really awesome. So shout out to her.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And shout out to Catherine. Do not have a last name, but Catherine, dear Catherine, every time she saw me, she always waved and said hi. And then she gave us this little card that said, to Nikki and Pete, great podcast, and gave me a little gift in there. And she was awesome. And I just really appreciate her. And so shout out to Catherine.
That's fantastic.
Yes. And I met one of my old clients, Catherine, that was there. And so it was really awesome. There you go.
Oh,
yeah.
So next year we need to go. We both need to go, and we need to do like meetups and stuff.
And we need to do a presentation. We need to propose.
Oh, we should do that too.
A presentation. We're not guaranteed in, but we should propose something awesome.
We can propose something.
Yeah.
We could do that.
We can. Totally. I've been thinking about it already. I have little notes.
You know what we're going to do?
I have all kinds of ideas. We could rock that place, Pete, right?
Get the old man on stage is what we're talking about. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, all right. So this is fantastic. Thank you for the update. We are talking today. This actually came out of our live stream last week. We had some conversations about the brain dump. Do you remember that?
I do.
Was it too long ago?
It was a long time ago, but I do remember it.
You did. You're doing okay. All right. So we were talking about the brain dump and what the brain dump is. And the big question that kept coming up out of that conversation was, what do you do after the brain dump? What do you do after the brain dump is so great, but what do you do? What do you do next? So we're going to talk about that momentarily. Before we get started, you can head over to takecontroladhd.com to get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to our mailing list where we'll send you an email. We'll send you an email and let you know every time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD. And I never say that. I'm going to do a little self-promotion. You can find me at Pete Wright. You haven't yet. I'm at Pete Wright. And I'll talk to you about ADHD too.
Of course.
We'll all talk to you about ADHD. Me and Take Control ADHD. And, I have another shout out. I talked a little bit about the book club last week that we were having our first meeting. And we had our first meeting. We have a book club and it's real now. It had a meeting. And that was absolutely awesome to connect with others about this book that we're reading, and it's a fantastic book. And it's now I can't remember what it was. It's the Nancy Rady book that you have on your shelf.
I do.
I remember her name.
The Organized Mind. I think that's what you guys are reading, right?
The Disorganized Mind, right?
Yes, I just saw Organized Mind. I didn't see the dis. Oh boy, I'm tired.
Anyway, we had our conversation about the first 2 chapters. Next 2 chapters are coming up on Friday. So if you want to jump into the book club, support us over at patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. Our deepest thanks to everybody who has already decided that we offer enough value to the ADHD community to be worth a couple of bucks a month and to get access to these perks into this community. It's incredibly moving to log into Patreon on our end and see the names of people, the humans who are connecting with us. There just aren't words.
It's awesome.
So thank you.
It's community. It's connection.
So
That's the other thing that I learned a lot about. And we're building that, which is really awesome.
Well, the good feels are enormously motivating, right?
Yes.
I mean, you log in and you see that, and it makes me want to research. It makes me want to present. It makes me want to do more. So I just thank you. That's how this ecosystem thing works. So patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. If it gives you any trouble, reach out. Happy to help directly. I will help you personally, help you get this figured out. So, okay, let's talk about the brain dump, Nikki Kinzer.
Yes.
Can we review first, what is the brain dump?
I would say that when I talk about it, it's really just getting your thoughts out of your mind so that you don't have to worry about what you're not thinking about or that you're worried about forgetting. So It's just really about getting it out on paper without really a whole lot of organization. I think you kind of do that later. I think the biggest mistake is that people will do the brain dump and then they don't do anything after it. And that's where it gets really overwhelming.
Well, that is the challenge,
that is the
right?
Challenge.
That's the problem.
Yes.
Because the brain dump, we tend to look at the brain dump as this one big discharge, right? This thing this event. We're going to do the event and we're going to start. And so we get everything out of our head and it goes on paper. And these are all the things that are stuck in our mind that are keeping us from moving forward. And, we know as human organisms that there is a limit to the number of things that we can keep in our working memory, right? I mean, generally accepted, it's about 7, right? Individual tasks before things start falling off. With ADHD, it's down to maybe a half.
Yeah. 7 even seems really high for a neurotypical.
Right? It does. That does to me too. And so, it is challenging to keep all this stuff in our head. So we do this brain dump as this catharsis, this thing that's going to help us move forward, clear the decks, unclog the pipes, and be able to focus again. And so now we get it all out on paper, and now we can just start doing the work, right? Well, probably not. Right. And so that's why we're talking about this today. So I'm a big believer in the brain dump, but I think that there are two potential reactions to the brain dump or to the post-brain dump experience. And now I'm saying brain dump, so it's starting to sound really gross, but I'm going to lean in on it. And we're
just go with it, yes.
Keep doing the brain dump. The potential reactions to the post-brain dump experience can be really disastrous from a productivity perspective. And number one, that we think that when the brain dump is done, that we're done. Right? We're finished. And now we have this list in front of us and we're proud of this wonderful work that we've done. And now it's time for a break and we're going to go take a break. And then we never come back to it. And before long, we have lost the list and it's in a pile and we have to do a new brain dump and start a new list. Right? Have you run into that?
Well, yes. And I think it's interesting because when you first started talking and you were saying, it's kind of this one event. And I think that that's where all this connects, is that it feels like it's one event. And then if you don't do anything with the first brain dump, now you have to start with a new one. And that really, I think we can probably figure out a different way of thinking about that so that it doesn't feel that way.
Yes.
Because it's really a work in progress is how I see it.
Well, hang on, because then we get to the second condition.
Okay.
Which is the thing that happens to others, and especially with ADHD, I think. So tell me if you've run into this one, that we get all of our stuff out of our head. And now we have this working memory vacancy. There's a hole in our head, right?
Really? Does that really happen though? Yes.
There's another hole in your head, Nikki. You can just lean in. Lean
into that hole.
But what comes with that hole is panic.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
Because we don't have any reason to trust this paper that's in front of us. And so now we have this long list of things. And tell me, you people watching with ADHD, you tell me you haven't done this, right? If you're listening to this, you look at that paper and you think, oh my God, There's no way I'm going to lose this paper. I'm going to forget where it is. It's going to end up in a pile. I better start trying to memorize it right now. Right? So I have just cleaned all the garbage out of my head and put it on paper. And then I went into this panic state and now I'm trying to put it all back in. Right? That's a terrible, terrible thing to get into. And it is the thing that it's going to continue to damage your ability to really make use of what the brain dump is supposed to be. Have you run into that?
Well, yes, I've ran into that. But I've also, just to add to that, I think people, it is so noisy. That's the only way that I can explain it, is that you're looking at this list of stuff and it's so noisy that it just all blurs together, that it means absolutely nothing anymore. Yeah. And the panic also comes from these this narrative of I can't prioritize. I can't figure out how to even start with this, and so then avoidance. Or you can flip to the other side and look at it and think, I've got to get all of this done today.
You're right. You're right. That's the third. Yeah. And that becomes, it takes you outside of like task overwhelm and into time overwhelm. Right. And that's another really dangerous place to be, because
end of the day, it's shame overwhelm because you didn't get the 10 things done, which really realistically no one would have gotten them done.
Get that done. Right.
But you're beating yourself up.
Right. So my sense is, and my experience is, that there is a thing that can work to address all of these conditions. And that is, we have to practice with a system that will become one day a trusted system. Mm-hmm. All right. So what is a trusted system? Nikki Kinzer, when I say trusted system, what does that mean to you?
Well, it goes back to, for me, GTD. Right? Because David Allen talks about this trusted system. And this is probably the first time when I started researching his system. That was the first time I really heard that concept of trusting it. Like, you have to trust it so that you can know, basically, to get what you need and be able to know that you can get things done and all of that.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to organizing systems, right? I mean, how do you go? What are the steps of organizing? Can you just a quick review? What are the organizing steps?
Well, yes. The first one is planning. You know, what are you going to organize? What's most important? Second one is going to be sorting and letting go and categorizing. So everything that you're keeping, you have to put in some kind of category. Third step is going to be then organizing that. Where is it going to go? Where is it going to live? Because everything needs a place that you can find and put back when you're done with it. And then the fourth one is maintenance, which is really where the trusted system comes. Because if you trust your system, maintaining it then becomes very easy. Because you know exactly where things are. And even if you get clutter, even if paper starts to build up, or, you know, things start getting up on or start piling on your dining room table, it's much easier to put away because you've already gone through the sorting and the organizing piece.
I love that we have our DNA in organizing.
Yes.
Sometimes that comes in really handy. It
really does come in handy.
It really does. Yeah. Because that's exactly what we're talking about today, right? The planning part, the very first step that's kind of the brain dump, right?
Exactly.
We're deciding what we need to organize in terms of the work that we have to do.
Oh, I love this connection, Pete, right? Good job. You did it. You connected all of this.
I just did that. Yeah, I just did that. That was a real thing. Okay.
All right, keep going.
Let's go back to the brain dump here.
Keep going.
When do you brain dump? Okay, so I'm going to answer that first cheekily, and that is always. You should always be brain dumping. Now, I don't mean you should always be brain dumping, but really you should always be brain dumping.
What kind of dumping are you doing?
Right. You should consider brain dumping as the number one process for your planning, because that will allow you to free yourself from overwhelm of having too much stuff in your head all the time, and you'll be able to do it with more frequency. So let me just tell you when you might consider brain dumping. Number one, one daily brain dump, you might do it first thing in the morning. You might do it right when you wake up, right? The very first thing you do is you put a pen and paper in hand and you start writing the things that you wake up with on your mind. That's a great way to get the first couple of things out of your head. But you're thinking, my goodness, how do I do this when I'm, when I just wake up? I turn my alarm off and I go back to bed because I'm avoiding the day. I'm in avoidance mode. Well, what if you put a little notepad in front of your alarm? So you actually have to reach through the notepad to actually hit your alarm. The first thing you have to do is touch it to do it. I'm a big field notes guy, and I would like to tell you, to demonstrate my commitment to field notes, I have one right here. This is the dime store edition field note. I love this one. It's a little bit larger. I also have a pack of the coastal edition, right? I love the coastal edition. Oh, wait, here are the 3 missions edition. They did a whole special edition on the space program. These are delightful. Wait, do you want more field notes? How about, here's the reporter's notebook edition of the, what the hey? Let me just show you on the live stream my field notes. I have a bin. I'm showing you a bin of, 100 field notes packets here. I love field notes. They're always around and with me. And that is what I use for my paper and pen brain dump.
And it's just a notebook, right? I mean, that's all it is. It's a notebook. It's just paper.
But it's so cool. Yeah, well, I mean, it's paper. Yeah, but it's really fun.
So are all those things in that bin, are those used ones or are those ones that you're going to be using?
Oh no, those are pristine. Those are brand new.
That's your those are your backups.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Your inventory.
No.
Okay.
So sometimes people question my commitment to my ADHD tools and what I've had to do.
I don't question field notes anymore at all.
This is an accommodation that deeply works for me.
You'll have to take a picture of that and put it in the show notes so the people that are listening can see that you and it's so nicely organized too.
Well,
Well, it is though.
You could say I've got some rubber bands in here. Yeah, no, it's good. This is something that I had to go in hard on because as soon as I discovered that this was something that would work for me, and I didn't have one handy, I went into that sort of panic mode and
bought all
things
of those.
fell apart. Yeah, and so then I subscribe. It's a subscription. I subscribe, and they send me them when I need them. They just come. Like magic, and now I don't have to wonder.
After you filled them out, do you keep them or do you toss them at that point? Because I know you have a system of where you put the information.
I do, but I can't turn my camera that way to show you. Sometimes they're special edition. Like some of them, like I'm a big XOXO fan. This is the special edition XOXO memo book. It was done by a local artist, and they're beautiful. And so I use them, and then I save them when I'm done because they're works of art, right? They're little works of craft and art, and I love them. Some of them are generic, and the generic ones, they're just brown. I mean, they're just literally brown notebooks. And so I toss when I'm done with them.
Yeah.
I used to go through the effort of actually taking a picture of every page, a scan of every page when I was finished with it, and digitizing the notebook and then recycling the notebook and keeping a scan of it. I don't do that anymore because who cares, right?
You're never going
about
back
the data in there. The data is transient, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get to about the brain dump. Enough about my field notes. Okay. Let's talk more about just having the tool to get you doing a brain dump more frequency. So now you have this thing in your hand. For me, it's a field note, whatever it is. You have this thing in your hand. You have to touch it. You might do it in the morning. You might do it at noon, right? What happened in the morning that was distracting you? Write it down. What's a thing that's in your way from moving on to your afternoon? Write it down. Get it out of your head. How about the end of your workday? For me, I have an alarm set and an appointment with myself at 4 p.m. every day. And that is blocked on my calendar. People can't schedule appointments with me at 4. People can't, book me in my Calendly to record a podcast. You can't do that because 4 p.m. is my best time for doing my daily review. At that point, I go through the notebook and I actually do the next step with all of my stuff, which is the most important step. We're going to get to that in a minute. So 4 p.m., that's for me. Other people do it before bed, right? You do it at the very end of the day. Like you're about to pick up your casual reading for the day to silent your mind. You get in bed, you make a couple of notes about the things that you need to get out of your head before you go to sleep. You'll have better sleep if you do that. That is one thing.
Oh, for sure. I
agree.
It's
so nice to wake up in the morning and you do your tasks, and at night you do your brain dump, and it's like the circle of tasks, right? I mean, it's a very Disney kind of a circle thing. So I also do a brain dump weekly, right? I do another bigger brain dump when I look at all of my projects that are sitting in my work system. And I think, okay, what is in the way of me taking on some of these projects that have been sitting in here for a long time? And I do that every week at 4:00 on Sundays. That's another important time for me. So no, you don't have to do all of these brain dumps, but you do need to work into your system some frequency of brain dumpage. You've got to get it out and not make it a once in a while thing. You have to make it a part of the system. And that's what I'm calling for here. You're going to save yourself an enormous amount of frustration and friction by making the brain dump not a once in a while, I'm going to start a new habit thing, but an everyday thing. Mm-hmm. This is who I am. I'm somebody who purges things from my head every single day.
I like it.
Okay, great. So all of that is set up to be able to approach this question. So what? What do I do now? Right? What do you do after that? So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. What do you do? How do you handle your brain dumps and the transition into whatever your system is?
That's a good question. So we know, I mean, for people that have listened, I use the task manager system things. You use Todoist, and it does not matter. I have to say this. It does not matter what your task manager system is, because that's not what's getting you to do the work, right? So you still have to do the work. You still have to do the task. So I don't want people to get so wrapped up into, oh, do I do things? Do I do Trello? Do I do Todoist? It's not so much about the tool, right? Just like your field notes.
Would say Totally. And I would say the very first thing I'm going to talk about is paper.
Right.
Because it's about process, not system.
Well,
so
and
you're absolutely right.
That's exactly what I would say is that I have a nice system in my things where it has all my projects and it has all the things I have to do daily, weekly, and monthly. And, everything's kind of separated. But what I'll do is honestly, I don't have it in front of me, but I have sort of a similar thing that's field notes, but it's just a 3-ring little binder that I got at Albertsons, and I just write the things that, okay, what do I need to remember? What do I have to do this week? What's important? And then I look at my calendar and that's my trigger to remind me if anything's coming up that I need to write down. And then that's where after that, it then goes into my things, and I then put it where it belongs. So whether it's a today, next week, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That is exactly what I was hoping you would say, because we're really talking about, reducing friction, using the most simple process to sort, filter, and prioritize the work that you have to do, and get it into a place where you're going to see it, where it's going to get done. And for me, as you say, you're on things right now. I'm on Todoist. Who knows where I'll be next week?
Exactly. You were talking about
I could be
OmniFocus the other day. Right. So who knows? You may be changing your mind.
I'm a flibbertigibbet. That's right. I might jump around. I jump around all the time on these things. What I can tell you, though, is the system doesn't change. And that's the most important part. The process that I go through to actually take the work of my brain dumpage and put that into an organized place where I will see the work that I need to do when I need to see it doesn't change. It just the aesthetics of the tool changes, the way it looks and feels to me.
What I want to clarify is I think that when you don't have a task manager system, your brain dump then is going to be probably quite large because you're setting it up. That's different than what we're talking about, because we don't have 3 pages of every single thing that we need to do, because we've already set up that task manager. So just want to clarify.
So let's start. That is actually what I wanted to talk about. So now you have this list of all these things to do. The most simple way to approach this list of work, now that it's all out of your head, is to simply do the work, right? Start at the top and do the work. That is the most rudimentary way you can actually do it. And at the end of the day, when it's time for another brain dump, you start at the bottom and just keep writing things. And I know a lot of people who live their entire professional lives working this way. They do the work that's at the top. They add new work at the bottom. It is the most simple, straightforward way to do it. Now, I know that, and I am one of these, that life is sometimes more complex than that, right? We have different realities that we have to live inside our family and its work, and there are different demands from other people, projects, associations, things that there are a lot of different demands, and those different contexts require us to organize the work in our heads in a way that's more approachable. And just one long linear list doesn't work. But you could maintain a kind of list that way if you develop yourself a system that works for you, a simple system that works for you to allow you to see what is most important without having to get into all of the data entry that goes with moving into things and setting dates and doing all of this stuff, right? When I first started doing this work, it was exactly that, right? I started with a list of, here's the date, here are the things I need to do today, and the most important thing of the day got a star by it. For me, star was today.
Right.
Anything else that was urgent for the day that would be ideal to get done got a dot, a nice thick dot next to it. Anything that I wasn't going to get done that day, it just had the list and then a date when I would like to get it done next to it. So that was it, a star, a dot, and a date. And at the end of the day, I would write that list again. Now, I know what you're saying. Pete, you just reinvented the bullet journal. Well, kind of.
I was also that did come into my mind. I will say yes. But then it also, what then jumped from the bullet journal was just another way that's not linear, and that would be a mind map.
Oh, that's interesting.
So here's the day, and here are the things that I have to do. And now we're like, having branches and legs. And so it's not so linear looking.
Yeah. And for some people, I personally don't work that way because I get confused with mind maps are fantastic for some things for me.
Right.
But man, I know how to mess up a mind map, something easy.
Well, it's like the bullet journal.
You have a good mind map, I will destroy it for you.
And that's like the bullet journal. For some things, it works really well. And for other things, it doesn't. So yes, keep going because...
Well, what I'm most interested in here, and I know that this is, for some people, this is a disaster, right? Just imagining rewriting things every day. But this is, as I said last week, this is a thing that writer Carol said that I really like, that the friction that you are introducing intentionally here of writing your tasks again the next day introduces friction that reminds you the relative importance of that thing that day. Right. So the act of writing it again, it's so much more difficult, right? Even just those few pen strokes, it's more difficult than just clicking, do this tomorrow in your task list, that it makes you stop and think and reflect. Is this still important to me? Is it important to others that are counting on me to do it? If it's not, then I can move on, right? I don't need to write it again. It can just fall off the list. It's possible for things to just fall off the list.
Now, so I have a question because I have a particular client that I'm thinking of. One of the things that he's really concerned about is forgetting stuff. So he'll have things, he'll have his tasks in his task manager. And then what he does is he ends up putting them, like they all have dates so that they all pop up at some point. But then the problem is if you're not consistent with either moving the date or doing the task, you can at some point 3 or 4 days later open up your task manager and have like 90 tasks, which then becomes really overwhelming. So what would you say to that? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Well, I do. And that is, I mean, you're just defining why we use the word practice moving toward a trusted system. You must practice a daily and weekly review. It is the central thing that comes out of getting things done.
To stop
that is
that
critical.
Backlog.
Yes, it's critical to you being able to reflect on the overall scope of work that you have for yourself, right? You have to scan all of your tasks, not when they're due, not when you've set these arbitrary dates just so that you'll keep seeing them again. You have to go through the scope of work and take the minute to reflect on it. Now, when we're talking about bullet journal, that reflection happens every day when you're writing the list of the work you're going to get done every day, because you're literally copying, this is the thing that you are going to do tomorrow, you're going to manually write it over there. And it does two things, right? First, it, as we just said, it lets you reflect on whether or not it merits a place on tomorrow's list. And two, it actually reinforces the importance of that thing to you. So it doesn't just pop up when you need it. It pops up because you're thinking about it as you're writing it. You're like, yeah, I'm going to take a few cycles and I'm going to process, what do I need to do this tomorrow, right? It allows you to reflect.
Yeah, it allows you to reflect, and it just keeps going back to what I'm listening to you, and I just keep thinking it's so intentional. And that's what we have to remember, is that it has to be very intentional. And I was working with a group member a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, he's like, in order for me to get these certain tasks done, I have to be really intentional about when I'm going to do them. And I said, and that's what you have to remember. That's what you have to highlight, is that if you want to get this stuff done, you have to put the strategy in place, which is making sure that you intentionally have planned for them. If you don't, then you're not going to get the task done. So I think it's really being aware of what works for you and following through with that. And when you don't do that, then understanding why it didn't get done is you didn't put that accommodation in that you needed to have.
The acronym DDST for me is another one that has stuck to me forever and ever. DDST, Nikki, do you remember what this is?
No.
From your Getting Things Done day, from your GTD? It's GTD DDST.
Oh, I don't remember.
Do, delegate, schedule, trash.
Oh, that makes sense.
Delegate,
yeah, it's coming to me.
Trash. I said, I recommend, I don't do this anymore, but I was once given as advice to me by an old boss who said, you know what, when you're planning your morning, don't set an alarm of when you're going to start planning your morning. Come in, get your coffee, sit down and set a stopwatch and watch that stopwatch in front of you. And you watch it for 10 minutes and let the sweeping hand of the time go by. And during that time, make it kind of a challenge, a race for yourself to go through the do, delegate, schedule, or trash process. David Allen does it. He talks about in his workflow, do it. If you can do it in under 2 minutes and get that task done and checked off your list, absolutely do it. If you cannot do it in 2 minutes, either schedule it for when it can be done or delegate it to somebody else who is better equipped to do it right now. If neither of those two conditions work, if you can't find anybody else to do it and you simply can't find the time to do it, then trash it and move on. And that is one of the hardest things that we can do, because we as ADHD, we collect things.
Right.
And collecting work is something that it's what we're doing here, and it's poison. If you can't stop and trash stuff that is no longer important to you or others that it may be more important to, move on. You are killing yourself. You are just killing yourself with it, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
It's a really good point.
Do, delegate, schedule, or trash.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you end up processing your brain dumps quickly. That's what I do. I don't do it with a stopwatch, but that's what I do at 4:00. I go through everything in my inbox, in my field notes, and I want to throw field notes like I'm bathing in them, but that would ruin my system. Anyhow, I want to go into that process as intentionally as possible and as quickly as possible, because if it takes me too long, I'll get distracted and I won't get it done. It has to be a race or I won't get it done.
Right.
And then I've equipped myself to get through that list quickly. Now, for me, that DDST process, I'm moving it into Todoist, and I'm putting intentional projects and times, schedules, like here's when this work is going to pop up. I'm building my, in Todoist, I'm building my agenda page for the coming day. That's all stuff that happens at that 4:00 review. But when you ask the question, what happens after the brain dump? It's this. This is what happens. You brain dump as frequently as you can, and then you have to come up with and practice every day the act of doing the work that can happen in under 2 minutes. I really like that a lot. That 2-minute rule is huge. Delegate it to someone else who's more equipped to do it, or it's more important to. Schedule it for another time that you're better equipped to do it, or trash it. So I think that's really important. We can go into there's more to like writing a great task that I think we could jump into, but I'd like to table this for now.
Yeah, for another conversation.
Unless you feel like there's anything that I've missed.
No, I think I think that we've covered a lot today, and we're not ones to have 2-hour podcasts. So
No, right. I want to.
we can break this up and
later.
talk about the other part later.
Right, I think so too. But I definitely think that there's certainly more to talk about, and I don't think we're good at moving from brain dumps to whatever comes next. And I think brain dump is step one of a process that is much that is actually more important,
right, in
actually defining what productivity means to you. So this was really fun to think about and make lots of notes about, and remind me of some of the things that are most important to me personally. And
you connected it to organization, which it is. I mean, that's a pretty obvious connection, but I love how you put it into like the steps that we already teach. That's really cool.
Well, thank you. That's
good job.
It's fun to do. Thank you very much. And so that, as they say, is that. Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. We deeply appreciate your time and your attention. And we also appreciate it if you head over to patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. Check us out over there. If you see it worthy, we appreciate your support with actual, dollars. That's great. Thank you. Thanks for helping us grow. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll catch you next time right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.